Hello, Radiant Leo. Let me ask you something bold. What if today is the only day the universe opens a door just for you? Would you walk through it? Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, where we don't just predict your future. We reconnect you with your soul's deepest knowing. And if you've landed here, on this exact video, on this exact date, I promise you, it is not by accident. This message is only for today. And it is urgent. Right now, in this moment, something sacred is unfolding. Not around you, within you. And it begins with one choice: to listen. This isn't your average horoscope reading. This is a spiritual encounter. An energetic alignment between your higher self, divine timing, and the angelic realm, especially the energy of Archangel Michael, who's stepping in as your guide, your shield, and your reminder. You are stronger than anything that tried to dim your light. Leo, you've been carrying silent weight. You've given more than you received. You've endured betrayals, losses, moments where your value was ignored or underestimated. But now, the universe is stepping in, not just to comfort you, but to restore everything that was unfairly taken. Your heart knows it. The energy is shifting, and this reading is your sacred confirmation. Not just emotional healing, but the return of your power, your self-worth, your true abundance, and yes, even the love or financial breakthrough you once thought was lost forever. Here's what I ask of you right now. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for just a moment. And in the comments, type out any angel number that pops into your mind. Why? Because when you do, you're claiming your energetic alignment. You're saying to the universe, I'm present. I'm listening. I'm ready. And before we begin, allow me to pause for a sacred second to say, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for every like, every comment, every moment you choose to spend with eternal mindfulness. Your presence doesn't just support this channel, it keeps the light alive. You're part of something bigger now. A collective awakening. A soul family. And trust me, my beloved Leo, you'll want to stay until the very last moment of today's message. Because what the universe is about to reveal is breathtaking. Truly. So tell me, Leo, what did the loyal souls of Taurus whisper that led you here today? Because something about today feels different. Take one more breath. Open your heart. Let's begin. There is a quiet but undeniable force that moves through the turning points of our lives, a gentle, almost invisible hand that seems to place the right moments before us when we least expect them. That force is not here to rescue us, but to remind us of what we've always carried inside, the ability to return to ourselves. And if you're listening to this now, Leo, it means that moment has arrived for you. You see, destiny doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't knock on the wrong door. It waits patiently for you to awaken, not to become someone new, but to reclaim the wholeness you may have forgotten. The feeling of being overlooked, judged unfairly, or passed by while others seem to race ahead isn't a reflection of your worth. It's simply part of a longer, deeper rhythm, one designed not to rush your blooming, but to make sure that when you finally rise, you do so with unwavering roots. When we feel like we've been left behind, it's easy to fall into the illusion that something is wrong with us. That we should have tried harder, been louder, been more of what the world seems to reward. But true light, your light, isn't loud. It doesn't compete. It waits. It watches. And when the time is right, it expands with quiet confidence. That time, Leo, is today. The High Priestess, the tarot card that appeared for you in this reading, isn't a coincidence. She doesn't speak in noise. She whispers. She invites you to sit in stillness and listen, not to the voices around you, but to the voice within. It's the part of you that already knows the truth, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. That truth is this: you were never behind. You were simply becoming. So often, we hesitate to step into our fullness because somewhere along the way, we were taught that our value must be proven, earned, or validated by others. That belief becomes a subtle cage. We adjust, we shrink, we settle for safe instead of expansive, for stable instead of alive. But the truth is, no one else can measure the worth of your fire. It was never meant to be measured at all. It was meant to be lived. There's a lesson here, and it's deeper than affirmation, it's recognition. Not of what you've gained or lost, but of how you've grown. Just like the sun doesn't need to explain why it rises, your light needs no justification. It's enough that it's yours. From a cosmic perspective, nothing that is truly yours can ever be taken from you. Not permanently. What's lost often returns, transformed, once you've become the person who can receive it fully. But before that return can happen, something within must shift. That's why this message isn't about hope for some future miracle. It's about acknowledgement of the path you've walked, of the pain you've endured, of the silence you've survived. What if none of those detours were random? What if each delay was actually protection? What if the hands that held you back were, unknowingly, pushing you closer to yourself? Just like a seed must first surrender to the dark before breaking through the soil, your spirit, too, has moved through its own silent germination. You didn't wither in that silence, you gathered strength. And now, you emerge. Not because you've finally been chosen, but because you're finally choosing yourself. The deeper teaching here is simple, yet powerful. Nothing that arises in your life is ever separate from you. Everything is a mirror. And what you see right now, this message, this call, this turning point, is not something being handed to you from the outside. It's something awakening inside, long dormant, now ready. If your heart is stirring, let it stir. If old doubts return, smile at them, then move forward anyway. This is not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming faithful. To yourself. To your light. To the truth that no one else gets to define your worth, your path, or your pace. You've never truly been lost, Leo. You've just been walking the kind of path that only the brave take, one that wins inward before ever shining outward. And now, the outward part is ready to begin. Let yourself rise. When we move from recognition into response, we step into a much more powerful space, a space where awareness becomes action. This part of your journey, Leo, is not just about realizing that your past pain was real or that your light deserves to shine. It's about reclaiming what was lost, not as a victim, but as someone who has quietly rebuilt their inner foundation while the world wasn't watching. There's a distinct shift in energy when you move from simply acknowledging your worth to actively embodying it, And that's exactly what this moment invites you to do. The appearance of the Justice card is deeply meaningful. It doesn't arrive to make a spectacle of fairness. It arrives when a deeper balancing is in motion, one that has more to do with inner alignment than external payback. It's a reminder that even if others couldn't see your value, you always had the right to honor it yourself. Sometimes, justice doesn't look like the world apologizing. Sometimes it looks like you no longer needing the apology to move forward. You've carried disappointment that runs deeper than most could imagine. People may have praised your strength without ever noticing what it cost you. And still, you rose. You forgave. You kept moving, quietly, fiercely. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting who you are, or what you're worth. It simply means releasing the need to stay chained to someone else's inability to meet you in truth. Now, paired with justice, the Chariot makes its presence known. This is no coincidence. The Chariot is about movement, not chaotic rushing, but conscious direction. It's the moment when the wheel returns to your hands. Not because someone handed it back, but because you were always meant to steer. The reins are yours again. Not to return to who you were, but to guide yourself toward who you've become. This is a pivotal stage. Many people never reach it. Because it's not easy to choose truth when comfort beckons, even if that comfort is built on old patterns. It's not easy to release the illusion of control when letting go feels like weakness. But you're not here to play small. You're here to live big, on your terms, from your truth, with your values leading the way. There's a quiet wisdom found in choosing clarity over comfort. It's like walking out of a familiar room into unfamiliar light. Your eyes might squint at first, but soon you see more than you ever could in the dark. That's what this part of your reading is offering you, the chance to see more clearly, not just where you've been wronged, but where you've outgrown your old ways of responding to it. In certain philosophies, it's said that the greatest discipline is not in controlling others but in mastering our response to what life brings. That mastery isn't aggressive. It's not loud. It's steady. Grounded. It flows like a river that no longer crashes against its banks, but carves a new path forward with quiet strength. So what does this mean for you, practically? It means choosing to no longer chase closure from people who can't meet you where you are. It means no longer shrinking to fit spaces you've evolved beyond. It means recognizing that your life doesn't need to be fair to make sense, it needs to be true. And you get to define what that truth looks like now. Let your comment be your commitment. Let the words, "I deserve a life of fairness, fullness, and freedom" echo not only in this space, but in every choice you make after this moment. The world may not always reflect your worth instantly, but your decisions can. And when they do, life has no choice but to shift in response. Because that's the nature of balance. Not imposed, but invited. Not forced, but allowed. And right now, Leo, you're allowing justice to return by choosing yourself. When you've spent years believing that love must be earned through effort or that stability requires self-betrayal, it becomes difficult to recognize ease as something natural. But Leo, this is where your next breakthrough begins, in the quiet, brave decision to no longer equate your worth with how much you're willing to struggle. What you're being invited into now is not a race, not a battle, but a gentle and consistent return to self-respect, the kind that doesn't demand applause, but simply feels right. You've been conditioned, perhaps by early dynamics, past relationships, or cultural beliefs, to equate sacrifice with strength and exhaustion with devotion. But your soul was never designed to live in constant overextension. The power you're reconnecting with now isn't about force, it's about alignment. And alignment requires inner spaciousness, which means releasing the idea that love, abundance, or purpose must be paid for in suffering. This is the moment to soften. To pause and tend to your body, not as a machine to be pushed, but as a sacred vessel that carries your light. Rest isn't laziness. Hydration, stillness, and proper sleep aren't luxuries. They're how you return to clarity. Waking up with intention, starting your day in silence rather than stress, letting your nervous system decompress, these aren't just wellness tips. They are micro-practices of self-loyalty. Each time you choose one, you're telling the world, I am no longer available for depletion as a lifestyle. Financially, you may be sitting in a space of uncertainty, a lull between effort and outcome. But don't mistake stillness for stagnation. This pause is the universe recalibrating things on your behalf. You've planted seeds. Some visible, some invisible. And now is the part of the cycle that asks for trust without constant proof. That trust is not blind optimism, it's energetic clarity. When you're grounded in knowing that your value isn't measured by hustle, you release the need to control outcomes, and that very release creates room for unexpected returns. If your career path is shifting or if you're feeling called to something new, don't judge yourself for the discomfort of that. Let go of the inner voice that whispers, you're starting over again. Because the truth is, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from wisdom. From integration. From everything you've learned through the detours and redirections. What feels like confusion might actually be the soul's intelligence nudging you away from what no longer resonates, not as punishment, but as protection. There's a deeper lesson in all this, and it's one that takes time to embody. You are allowed to choose what brings you peace without justifying it. You are allowed to pursue work that nourishes your spirit, not just your wallet. The belief that passion and prosperity must be separate is an illusion rooted in fear, not truth. And here's the deeper energy at play. When your heart is fully engaged, your energy becomes magnetic. Resources begin to respond to your joy, not just your labor. That's not wishful thinking. It's a natural law, quietly confirmed again and again by those who dare to follow what lights them up. So if you've been taught to delay your happiness until after the goal is met, reverse that logic. Begin with joy. Begin with authenticity. Let that be your starting point, not your reward. Choose what makes your chest feel open and your breath return to rhythm. Let that be enough of a compass. Everything else, money, progress, confirmation, will follow the clarity of that choice. Not immediately, but inevitably. You don't need to overwork to be deserving. You don't need to settle to be safe. The path you're walking now may be unfamiliar, but it's lined with quiet victories that affirm your freedom, the freedom to rest, to choose again, and to receive not through striving, but through remembering your worth. Let this be the season where your energy becomes your wealth, and your peace becomes your permission. There's a quiet moment in every transformation when we realize that moving forward isn't about sprinting ahead, it's about releasing what we've been carrying. And not just the visible burdens, but the silent ones, the resentment we've tucked away, the bitterness we thought was strength, the unspoken ache of not being seen, heard, or honored. Leo, in your fire lies incredible power, but fire can consume or illuminate depending on how you choose to hold it. This is that choice. Not for them, but for you. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. It's not about excusing behavior or inviting it back into your life. It's about no longer allowing that behavior to live rent-free in your energy. True forgiveness isn't passive. It's an active, conscious choice to loosen your grip on the narrative that pain is your identity. And here's what often goes unsaid: you can forgive someone and never speak to them again. You can forgive a situation and still walk away. Because forgiveness is an inward release, not an external reconciliation. The energy of judgment arriving with the Empress card speaks directly to this. Judgment brings awareness, not punishment. It asks you to see clearly the roles you've played, the choices you've made, and the deeper invitations they were quietly offering. It doesn't demand perfection. It invites reflection. And Empress, in all her grounded radiance, reminds you that healing is never about erasing the past. It's about composting it. Letting the experiences, even the painful ones, become soil. Not for more sorrow, but for growth. You've likely heard the saying, "Let it go." But that phrase doesn't land until you understand why holding on is costing you more. And it always costs more. It costs your peace. It costs your sleep. It costs your openness to receive the good that's trying to find you. The mind might cling to fairness. It might want justice in the form of acknowledgement. But the heart? The heart just wants to breathe again. Forgiveness is the inhale after years of emotional breath-holding. In this new chapter of your journey, what you're being asked to do is simple, but not easy. You're being asked to surrender your attachment to being right, to being vindicated, to being understood by those who may never have had the capacity to meet you there. And in return, you get your freedom back. You get your energy back. You get space in your hands to receive what's actually aligned with your healing, not your history. From a cosmic perspective, nothing grows in tightly clenched fists. The more you grip the past, the more the future slips through. And paradoxically, it's only when you stop needing that apology, that recognition, that repayment, that the universe starts sending new opportunities that feel like justice in a more divine form. That's not magic. That's clarity. Ask yourself gently, what still lingers in me that no longer needs to? Sit with that question, not to judge yourself, but to witness what's ready to be laid down. Write the words if you feel them rise. I forgive. I allow. I receive. Not because it's easy, but because you're ready. This is not about pretending the wound never happened. It's about recognizing that you no longer want to live from the energy of that wound. And that, Leo, is the moment you return to your throne, not because it was given to you, but because you remembered it was yours all along. There are moments in life that don't knock loudly. They don't come with dramatic signs or flashing certainty. Instead, they arrive like a quiet invitation, subtle, sacred, and deeply personal. This part of your journey, Leo, is one of those moments. It may not look different on the surface, but somewhere within you, you can feel the shift. The soft urgency. The sense that something is asking to be chosen before it disappears. Think of this moment like a door, not a metaphorical one, but a very real energetic passage. The kind that doesn't need a key because it isn't locked. It's waiting for presence, not proof. It opens only when your readiness outweighs your fear, when your desire to grow becomes greater than your need to stay safe. And that's the challenge, isn't it? Because safety, even when it's built on old pain or outdated beliefs, can feel more familiar than freedom. But behind this door, the one that only opens when your heart softens and your will aligns, is everything your spirit has been quietly working toward. Stability that feels earned but not exhausting. Love that feels honest, not performative. Abundance that doesn't demand your soul as collateral. Respect that isn't conditional. But all of that can't reach you if your hands are still clenched around the past, around what hurt, what didn't work, or what you still feel the need to control. The invitation here is not dramatic. It's not about grand gestures or bold leaps. It's about choosing, in the smallest, realest way, to take one step forward. And sometimes that step isn't external, it's internal. It's the moment you stop waiting to be rescued or guaranteed something, and instead say, I'm ready. Even if I'm not certain, I'm still willing. There's a truth often overlooked in change: doors like this don't stay open forever. Not as punishment, but as a reflection of movement. Life keeps flowing. Energy keeps shifting. If we don't align with the window that's open now, we may find ourselves circling the same patterns, waiting for another opportunity that doesn't quite arrive in the same form again. This isn't about pressure. It's about presence. You've been gifted awareness, and with that comes the chance to respond. And that response doesn't have to be loud or brave in the way people usually define it. It just has to be real. Honest. A choice made without looking back. Sometimes, the universe doesn't ask us to leap. It asks us to stop resisting. To stop bargaining with our fears. To stop rehearsing what-ifs and simply walk, softly, steadily, into the next version of ourselves. There's a teaching I've come to love, one that says true freedom isn't found in escape, but in full engagement with what's here, now. When you meet this door, not just in vision but in action, you're not running from the past, you're releasing it. You're not hoping for something better, you're becoming someone who can receive it. And that shift is what changes everything. So ask yourself, not with pressure but with presence, am I willing to live a life I've never lived before? Am I willing to walk into the unknown not because I know the outcome, but because I trust the path that brought me here? And if even a small part of you whispers yes, write it down. Let your voice echo into the field of potential that surrounds you. Let the words, I choose to walk through the door of destiny, and I will not turn back, become a vow, not just to the universe, but to yourself. Because sometimes, all it takes is that one step. And once you take it, the door doesn't just open. It becomes you. Leo, you don't need to roar to be heard. True light doesn't compete, doesn't beg, and certainly doesn't perform. It simply is, steady, present, and undeniable. And that is the truth I want you to carry with you from this moment on. You were never meant to dim yourself just to make others comfortable. You were born to take up space, not through force, but through quiet, grounded self-respect. You've spent enough time trying to prove your worth, bending your fire to fit expectations that were never yours to begin with. But today, something is shifting. Today, you're not chasing anything or anyone. You're returning to yourself, to your rhythm, to the pulse of your own soul. You're remembering that you don't have to push for recognition. The fact that you're still here, still shining, still showing up, that is your proof. So I invite you, just for a moment, to close your eyes. Feel into the center of your chest, not the surface noise, but the steady warmth beneath it. Imagine a golden flame there, not wild or explosive, but strong, like the sun before it rises. This is your light. Not seeking attention, not needing validation. Just being. And it is more than enough. You've walked through lessons that humbled you. You've experienced silence where you longed for support. But you also chose growth when bitterness seemed easier. That alone speaks volumes about the kind of soul you are. The world may have forgotten to tell you, but I will. It takes immense strength to soften after being hardened by life. And you did that. Now is the time to shift the narrative. You are not here to survive anymore, you are here to thrive. You are not here to shrink, to overgive, to overexplain. You are here to radiate. From a place of peace. From a place of truth. From the knowing that what belongs to you will feel like alignment, not struggle. So here's your invitation. Declare it in the comments, not for me, not for others, but for you. I choose to live fully in my true light. No more waiting, no more asking for permission. Let it be your vow. Let it be your energetic contract with the future that's waiting on the other side of your yes. And if this message met you at the right moment, if it stirred something real in your heart, don't just hold that feeling quietly. Press like, subscribe, or share it forward, not just as support for this channel, but as a signal to the universe that you're awake, aware, and ready. Because Leo, the magic doesn't come when you're flawless. It arrives the moment you choose to show up, exactly as you are. Fully. Unapologetically. And that choice is everything. Remember, you are the miracle this world has been waiting to witness.